Well, thank you for inviting me to give this keynote, and thank you, Nana, for your generous introduction. I have to warn you, I'm going to speak for an hour from now. So I hope you can stay awake. And what I'll do is, first of all, to congratulate NORA, which has for the past 20 years been and continues to be an important channel for communicating Nordic contributions within international and global research on gender and feminist studies. Considering NORA's academic position, it seems an obvious choice to look back at the past 25 years to highlight a few important accomplishments and challenges that have grown out of the interrelation between Nordic and transnational feminist studies. And in doing so, I also hope to outline some potential future and even futuristic perspectives. So what I want to do in this paper is to take up one of our classics, that is one of the most influential feminist thinkers of our time, namely Judith Butler, who since the early 90s has made a significant difference to feminist theory, and to move on to discuss another current influential voice, namely Karen Barad. In this way, I wish to discuss the challenges and potential that not only a post-positivist but also a post-humanist understanding of the formation of subjectivity, of sex gender, of gendered positioning encounters when considering the interaction of technological imitations of the human and of sex gender in the enactment of that attempted imitation. Although Barad doesn't present her agential realist theory with the specific intention of developing feminist thinking, she has nonetheless become relatively influential, a relatively influential voice for many feminists within the new materialist traditions. One of the things that links Barad and Butler is their engagement with the conceptualizations of matter and discourse as agential forces in the enactment of human and, as particularly emphasized in Barad's work, in her work, non-human phenomena. And this is a point I raise already now, albeit briefly, in order to make relevant the choice of theoretical conceptualizations and examples during my paper. My examples involve avatars from computer games and robots, mainly androids, and geminoids, as Ichiguru's geminoid here, and perhaps most importantly, the spaces between imaginaries and the materializations within the broad field of technologies. And later in the paper, I will also include figures from the movie Her, romantic movie, which I assume most of you have enjoyed already. I'll bring these, this is from the movie Her. I'll bring these phenomena in, not just as strange new objects in our world, but as a real future, though perhaps currently only imaginary, as our real future, though currently only imaginary fellow beings, or as Donna Haraway says, companion species. Not all of them, but some of them are here already. Avatars have, for years, been engaged in close relationships with gamers, and the robot Now is now present in 42 primary schools intended to teach children mathematics and other subjects. The Pensa project and Aarhus experiments with robots dining with elderly to motivate them eating, and expectations are high that in the future we'll be able to design robots to interact with human beings as friends, as housekeepers, conversation partners, secretaries, sex partners, and of course also babysitters, to name but a few. These expectations are saturated with gendered concepts about appropriate behavior, appropriate aesthetics, skill ranges, and movements, and of course this raises a lot of interesting questions. Take this babysitter robot as an example. Concerned parents will ask, are these robots qualified for the kind of human interaction we believe children need? Is it possible to replace caring, relational, and intuitive female capabilities with those of a machine? The same kind of discussion surrounds the issue of robots in elderly care and robots as sex partners. The sex robots are not here yet. However, in the imaginaries, primarily intended for disabled people, though also considered a marketing opportunity in relation to a broader section of the population. And the questions go, are these dignified companions for human beings? Take the robot Paro, for example, which Katrine Hesse has written some interesting stuff on. Paro is a soft seal that works as a sociable robot pet for hospitalized children and for elderly. And when it was first introduced, many people asked the question, is a robot pet a dignified companion? Are we not lying? Lying, for instance, for the elderly, when we offer emotional attachments that are merely technologically produced imitations that are not real. Well, others would say, what is a real pet after all? Fur filled out with human emotional projections? If this robot can create emotions and experience of the emotions and experience of a pet, what is the problem? If technological devices can provide what we expect from relationships with creatures produced by biological material, like humans and animals, why should we be upset or concerned? So if robot designers can create better sex partners for people, what is the problem? If we can buy a robot, a lovely android, come on. Innovations are on their way, and in a decade or two, every home will house a robot housekeeper, and he and she will be much more skilled, charming, and patient than those you see in the Hollywood and Bollywood movies. This is the kind of discussion you'll hear in the cafes and corridors at robot marketing conferences and read about on the internet. So something is definitely going on. Something that in the near future may affect our lives and our self-understanding as human and as conditioned by gender constructions. And for researchers within the social sciences and humanities, this is, of course, the interesting part. These kinds of phenomena do not only raise questions about ethics or about too easy access to services of various kinds, they also raise some very interesting theoretical questions concerning our understanding of the human and the subject. What is the human? Is it really possible to imitate the human via technology, plastic, and electronics? And it raises questions about the social categories we live by, about sexual categories, gender, ethnicity, race, class. How are these categories involved in the attempted imitations of the human? But it also challenges other kinds of meaning-making categories. By virtue of their character and the ways in which they challenge the categories we live by, these phenomena undermine a good deal of the dichotomies we take for granted, such as the dichotomy between real and virtual, matter and discourse, past and current and future, and of course the imaginary and the real. And because technology is continuing to advance, they even undermine the dichotomy between biological and non-biological material while enacting potential combinations and entanglements, and I could go on. However, one dichotomy that the phenomena don't seem to challenge with the same kind of curiosity and intensity is the gender phenomenon. They don't seem to challenge them to the same extent, and it's this opposition between those two simultaneously strong and very fragile categories named male and female, together with all the dichotomies associated with them, such as energetic and caring, vigorous and pleasing, combined with the aesthetics that are taken to be their representation. You know all these categories. We have analyzed them for years and years. Sometimes the expectations of their realization by people carrying particular kinds of genitals come in a one-to-one relation. Sometimes the strings of associations and expectations are extended, and so-called female dimensions are taken to be present in people with penises too, only now under the name of his female aspects, expected to exist as different from, yet parallel to his natural and fundamental masculinity. So the presumed natural habitat of the phenomenon femininity is a body with a vagina, and the presumed natural habitat of masculinity, etc., etc. And if you want your I always ask, mine? I never had any. Well, anyway, your female and male aspects to stop being mere aspects in an opposite gendered habitat and to take hold of the entire construction in terms of expectations and associations evoked by the figure you make in society and in your relationship, you may try to negotiate a rebuilding of your body.